Imagine this. You've just downloaded an app, right? Maybe one that helps you manage your health, stay connected with family, or even track your medications. It's specifically designed for you, promising convenience and, peace of mind. But what if that very app, the one you trust with your most personal health data, your medication details, what if it's secretly leaving it all completely exposed? What if it's not just a little buggy, but actually dangerous? Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we unpack complex topics, we sift through the research, and really try to pull out the most important bits of knowledge and insight for you. As security experts, our mission, especially today, it's to help you understand and combat online crime, particularly how it targets older adults. We don't use our names here. The focus is purely on getting this crucial information directly to you. So today we're diving into a new paper. It's by Concordia researchers, and it unveils a really disturbing reality about apps designed for seniors. And look, this isn't about minor glitches. We're talking significant real risks to your privacy and your personal data.
Exactly. And what's truly unsettling here is just how widespread these vulnerabilities seem to be, and the potential real-world consequences. They could be profound. Our mission today is really to shine a bright light on these findings, help you understand this digital landscape, what it genuinely means for your digital safety, hopefully without feeling overwhelmed. I think the key takeaway for you today is understanding why this happens and, crucially, how you might protect yourself.
Okay, let's unpack this then. When we think about tech, mobile devices, often our minds jump straight to younger people, right? But that picture, it's changing fast. Pew Research Center estimates that, get this, about 61% of older people in the U.S. now own a smartphone. That's a huge, growing group.
It absolutely is. This isn't some small niche anymore. It's a rapidly expanding market. And naturally, with that growth comes this whole constellation of mobile apps designed specifically for this demographic. Things like apps for medication reminders, tools for telehealth, video calls with the grandkids, even those brain training games.
And yeah, on the surface, that sounds great. These apps, they're designed to help older users stay in touch, manage health tasks, enhance their social lives, they bridge distances, they simplify routines, they genuinely promise to improve quality of life. But, and this is the big but, here's where it gets really interesting. Because while these apps promise to simplify life, the researchers found that behind that friendly interface, there's a pretty unsettling truth.
Yeah, the core of this Concordia research we're looking at today, it reveals something really concerning. These apps, they seem beneficial, often well-intentioned, sure, but they are far from risk-free. Researchers at Concordia took a close look at 146 popular Android apps specifically for older adults.
And what they discovered was, frankly, shocking. 95 of them, that's roughly two-thirds. Two-thirds. They don't adequately protect users in one or more ways. That's a massive failure of digital security, really. And it represents a significant risk for a population that, well, in many cases, might be less aware of the hidden dangers, the perils of our digital world. When we talk digital safety, this finding, it's a major red flag, undeniable. What alarms me is the type of data at risk. It's incredibly critical stuff. The lead author, Pranay Kapoor, pointed out, and I'm quoting here, many of these apps contain essential health or medication information. So we're not talking about your favorite recipe or, a cat photo. This is highly sensitive, deeply personal data, directly related to your well-being.
And this raises a really important question. What happens if this kind of sensitive data gets compromised? An attacker, they could potentially exploit these vulnerabilities. They could maybe alter medication details or even the reminders to take them. Just think about that for a second. Even tiny alterations to a medication schedule or dosage instructions, they can have profound, potentially life-threatening consequences for someone's health. It hits right at your immediate health. That's way beyond just privacy concerns, isn't it?
Okay, so two-thirds are vulnerable. Wow. What kind of vulnerabilities are we actually talking about here? Is it super complex hacking stuff, or are these kind of basic flaws?
That's a great question. And you're right, a lot of these issues are surprisingly fundamental. Basic stuff. Let's try and break down some of these terms, make them a bit more relatable. Okay, one major issue they found was personally identifiable information leakage, PII leakage. Basically, this means your sensitive personal data like your name, address, maybe even details pointing to your social security number, it's just sort of left out in the open. Anyone can potentially see it. It's like, imagine leaving your diary open on a park bench. Anyone walking by can just read it. That's kind of the digital equivalent.
Wait, leaving the door wide open. And then there's improper authentication management. That sounds technical. But is it just like bad passwords or something worse?
It can be bad passwords, yeah, or sometimes even worse. It's all about who can get into your account and how secure that access is. Think of it like the lock on your front door. Maybe it's really easy to pick. Or maybe one key somehow fits lots of different doors. If authentication isn't managed right, accounts can be easily compromised. Unauthorized people can just get in.
So someone could just take over your account. That's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's terrifying. What else?
Well, another common problem was unencrypted personal information transmission. So this means many apps were sending users personal info over the internet without scrambling it properly, without encryption. To put it simply, it's like sending a postcard instead of a sealed letter. Anyone along the delivery route, maybe someone snooping on your Wi-Fi or some hacker, they can just read your sensitive details as they travel from your phone. Your health data, your medication schedule, just out there, in plain text, easy to intercept.
Wow. And then, maybe the most disturbing part, they found issues where the app's own internal security gates were just wide open, like basically inviting hackers in.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The researchers called these access control issues, and they also found something called unauthenticated server API endpoints. Okay, don't let the jargon scare you. Think of it like the app's internal system having a kind of hidden back door. But the door's been left wide open. The researchers found that basically anyone could just walk right through that back door and grab your data. No questions asked. Why? Because the server wasn't properly checking who was trying to access it. And these aren't usually, super obscure, complex attacks. They're often just fundamental security oversights. Pretty basic stuff missed.
And if all that wasn't enough, they also found these third-party trackers in many apps.
That's right. Which means, often without really clear consent from the user, other companies could be tracking behavior, collecting data for advertising, maybe other purposes. It just adds another layer of privacy concerns that people using the app might not even realize is happening. It's kind of like having someone constantly looking over your shoulder, digitally speaking, without you knowing.
So, these flaws sound pretty glaring, pretty fundamental, you'd think. Are they hard to fix?
What really struck me was the researchers saying many of these were easy hacks but easy fixes.
Exactly. That's the kicker, really. Many of these vulnerabilities, they can be fixed if developers just followed basic security best practices. Standard stuff. It should be relatively straightforward. The disconnect seems to be, as Professor Amr Yusuf from Concordia points out, that developers are often they're more worried about getting the product out the door, delivering the features. He calls security a non-functional requirement, which means it often gets less attention than the core functions, or just shipping the app quickly. It feels like a genuine oversight sometimes, almost an afterthought for many.
But the researchers, to their credit, they didn't just find these issues and, write a paper and walk away. They actually tried to do something about it. They reached out directly to the developers, 35 of them, whose apps had critical problems, shared everything they found. Yeah, and this is where the response gets really disheartening. Of those 35 developers they contacted, only 7 even bothered to respond at all, and 2 of those were just automated replies, like, thanks for your email. Only 5 actually acknowledged the issues and said they'd forward them to their security teams. 5 out of 35. It's not just a shrug, is it? It feels like a profound lack of accountability. It's genuinely disappointing to see such little concern for user safety, especially for this group, who often need more protection, not less. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does that say about the industry's priorities when something so basic, especially for potentially vulnerable users, gets ignored? Is it just cutting costs or something else?
And this research, it's not just numbers and technical terms. There's a deeply personal human cost here. The lead researcher, Pranay Kapoor, he shared this really powerful anecdote, brings it right home. He said, while this research was in its initial stages, my grandmother fell victim to a scam. That made it feel very real.
Wow. Yeah, that experience, it really highlights the core vulnerability here. It's not just technical flaws, it's human factors too. Older adults, sadly, are often targeted, precisely because they might have less experience or knowledge about new technologies, about the risks, like phishing scams or data exposure. And it also brings up another point, doesn't it? About how these devices often get introduced in the first place. Often a younger person, maybe a child or grandchild, hands them a phone, sets up an app, but without really explaining how it all works, what the settings mean, what dangers to look out for. So they're given this incredibly powerful tool, but maybe without the instruction manual for navigating its complexities, its dangers safely.
So, okay, how does this translate to everyday use for people listening? And what does it all mean for us? This research really drives home that phone security for older adults.
Well, it's everyone's responsibility. That definitely includes the app developers. They have a huge role. But it also falls on those who introduce the tech, and yes, on the users themselves to be aware and proactive. Absolutely. The core takeaway from this deep dive, I think, is pretty clear. The very apps designed to help older adults connect, manage their health, live more independently, they're often riddled with serious security flaws, basic flaws sometimes. And these flaws put extremely sensitive data health info, medication details at significant risk. And this vulnerability, it often comes down to developers prioritizing, well, speed to market over fundamental security practices.
Right. And while developers absolutely bear a massive responsibility here, just understanding these risks, that's the crucial first step for you in protecting yourself. Protecting yourself from scams, from data breaches, it means you need to be aware that not all apps are created equal. Even the ones with the best intentions can have hidden dangers. So maybe be a bit more vigilant about what information you share online or what permissions an app asks for. Like if an app wants access to your contacts or your location and it doesn't seem necessary for what the app actually does, question that. Ask why. Always keep your phone's operating system updated. Those updates often contain security patches. And please, consider using strong, unique passwords for every single app and online account. Don't reuse passwords. The more informed you are, the better you can advocate for your own digital safety. So, thinking about all this, given what we've learned today, if an app promises convenience or connection, how much are you maybe unwittingly trading for it in terms of your privacy, your security, and maybe a bigger question? What responsibility do we all share in demanding better, more secure technology, especially for our most vulnerable users? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into app security for older adults. We really hope this has given you some critical insights, maybe some practical tips to help you navigate our increasingly connected world just a little bit more safely.